Thank you for tuning in to Exeter TV. Exeter TV is the town's public and government access channels, available on Comcast Channels 6 and 22. Channel 6 is your channel. If you have an idea for a program, want to host your own talk show, or submit a film, we're here to get your content on television. On Channel 22, we bring you live and replay coverage of government meetings and other town updates. A third channel, Blue Hawk Media, is operated by SAU 16 and can be found on Channel 8, with all your school sports, events, and meetings. You can watch Exeter TV online at exeternh.tv, Apple TV, and on Roku. Find us on social media for extra content. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the bell to get notified about live streams and new content. Tune in to our platforms every other Friday to watch the Exeter Biweekly Report with recaps of recent events, updates from town departments, and messages from nonprofits in your area. If you head to our website, exeternh.tv, we invite you to sign up to our newsletter to receive monthly updates about new content, upcoming meetings, and more. We'd like to thank you for taking the time to watch Exeter TV and hope that you tune in to our other content as well.
started. Okay. All right, welcome. Thanks for everyone for coming to the September Conservation Commission. Start off with introductions. I'm Andrew Koff, the chair of the Conservation Commission. We'll start down with our newest member. Thank you, Michelle, for joining the commission. We're excited to have you here.
Grateful.
Keith Whitehouse.
Nick Campion.
Kyle Welch.
Valerie Fanger.
Dave Short.
Don Clement.
Connor Addison.
Nancy Belanger.
And Kristen Murphy with the Planning Department.
Okay. I don't believe we have any public comment here, or any public here to comment. In terms of our action items, Lynette, Jeremy is here, so we were gonna do our first item, and then we were gonna go to Jeremy, assuming you're okay with getting bumped to item 3.
Not he can make another.
Not a problem, okay.
You can tell her I owe her one.
Jeremy owes you one. Okay, he has to run off to another meeting, so. All right, with that, we'll start with our first action item. It's a conditional use permit application for the construction of a vehicle storage lot and electric charging station at McFarland Ford, 110 Holland Way. I believe we have some folks here to present on the topic. You can introduce yourself.
Hi everyone, I'm Chris Lane from McFarland Ford. Thank you for your time tonight. Our project is mainly about installing 3 level 3 chargers off of our entrance from Holland Way. Ford Motor Company has instituted a program in which dealers who would like to sell electric vehicles after December 31st of 2023 are required to have a certain amount of charging infrastructure at their dealerships. For our store, that means 6 level 2 chargers and 3 level 3 chargers, all made available to the public, which we can offer 24/7, or we could set them 6 a.m. to 8 p.m. We do have some leeway with that. The idea behind the location of where we're putting the chargers has to do with ease of the public coming in, realistically. There's a fair amount of traffic on Portsmouth Ave compared to Holland Way, as well as if people are coming in from Holland Way, they can get to the charging stations pretty quickly. I envision people maybe using the Hannaford's shopping area, being able to charge their cars across the way with us, walking across the street to do shopping, what the other things that are in that shopping area. Yeah, that's pretty much it. It's a big project between the 6 level 2s and the 3 level 3s. It's about a $750,000 investment that we're excited to do. We have a lot of electric vehicles coming. It's coming sooner rather than later, and we want to be ahead of it and make sure we're kind of on the forefront of this technology. So, it's kind of a little bit of the background for why we're here and why we're doing it, and I appreciate it. So, here's Eric from Jones Beach. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. My name is Eric Poulin from Jones Beach Engineers, and I just wanted to walk through what we're planning here. As Chris said, our primary access point is Holland Way. We have an existing driveway here that heads into the dealership. Some of the committee members may remember or recall a couple years ago we came in for the storage parking lot that runs along Holland Way here. You could see the driveway for that. That was put in a few years ago. We're utilizing that new driveway and setting it up to have circular traffic motion around this island where the charging stations are going to be. The current site where we're planning on installing this is a gravel storage area. It's basically just an open gravel lot that McFarland Ford utilizes to store inventory. We're proposing to pave a portion of this gravel storage area to set up for the EV stations, and then also we still want to have some inventory storage in the vicinity of the charging stations. The gravel area is about 7,820 square feet. We're proposing to have about 6,220 square feet of pavement. We are within the wetland buffer. A portion of this wetland is a prime wetland. So we wanted to be very cognizant and respectful of that wetland system. So we found it important to make sure we had a reduction in impervious area. We also wanted to pull away from the wetland a little bit. Now, it's not a large pull away, but we are retracting away from the wetland a little bit, and we're planning on reclaiming those areas and then returning them to a vegetative state. In addition to the reduction of pavement that we're planning, we're also planning on installing a treatment swale. So currently, a large portion of this gravel area just sheet flows off and then heads into the woodland behind us. What we're planning on doing is grading this thing accordingly so that all of the stormwater is going to get captured. So we'll no longer have any direct sheet flow from an impervious area into the buffer area and ultimately into the wetlands. We're going to use curbing and grading to direct the flow into an existing treatment swale, which we're gonna modify slightly to accommodate the increased flow, and propose a new swale that runs along the McFarland Ford driveway. So that'll be a brand new treatment swale and will help provide treatment to a large impervious area that currently doesn't have any. Those swales also have litter capturing riprap aprons at the front of each swale to catch any heavy litter before it enters the swales. So from an impact standpoint, there are sections of the wetland that are prime wetland and also poorly drained wetlands. We have 5,948 square feet of temporary prime wetland impact. That'll be disturbance area within that buffer that we're planning on returning to a stabilized vegetative state, and 828 square feet of poorly drained wetland buffer for temporary. For permanent, which is areas, the primary one is pavement, also riprap we counted, are 5,844 square feet in the prime buffer, and 580 square feet in the poorly drained wetland buffer. But I'd like to reiterate that we are reducing the impervious in this area, and we're going to direct it away from the wetland and into treatment systems. So we see this as a massive improvement from a water quality standpoint for this area. And in addition to that, the obvious communal benefit of having EV charging stations that are going to be open up to the public, which I find great. That's where things are heading. Electric vehicles, so charging stations open for the public are going to be important going forward. So that's a assessment and kind of overview of what we're planning here. Brendan Quigley from Gove Environmental has also joined us this evening. If you have any direct questions regarding his functions and values assessment he did of the wetlands area, he can certainly do that. And at this point, I'd open it up to the committee for any questions. Thank you.
Point of order. The chair should designate who is going to be the voting members, because a vote's going to be required on this. So because there are 9 people, the chair should designate of the 9 who are the voting members.
Yeah. Alternates are
I'm alternate.
Valerie
Michelle, Mallory,
Ryan.
and Don.
and Don. Okay. Is everyone else okay to vote? Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, but of
5. So there's 6 voting members present, so 1 alternate
one alternate
should be a
should be
vote.
designated to
Oh, okay. Don, would you like
It's up
to
it's up
vote?
to the other alternates. I mean,
I know you have a history at this
well,
site.
yeah, I know the site a little bit, fine. I'll do that, okay. And next one, somebody else, another alternate can begin. Just so we do this proper way.
Yeah, it's good, thank you. Does anyone have any questions to start? I have some.
What is the, what's the buffer setback on a prime? I forget. And where are we on the
Yep.
Buffer setbacks 100.
100 feet? So you're intruding into how many, into up to what?
So,
Well, I know square footage, but I'm talking about, yeah.
yeah, let me show the buffers here. So you can see on this plan, this is the 100-foot buffer line here. So the majority of the work will be within the 100-foot buffer. And there are some small pockets of wetlands that aren't prime,
Correct.
but poorly drained. So rather than having too many lines on top of each other, I meshed that first ring of buffer impact. So a portion of this wetland, that's the poorly drained buffer. But I did look at both on top of each other and made sure I got the areas correct for the permit. So the numbers on the permit are correct. But the short answer is we're in pretty close proximity to it. And the majority of the project will happen within that buffer.
Okay, I guess, thank you.
Yep.
My one question is, I guess I was involved in, and I know Don was also involved in the review of this other parking lot, and that was maybe 2020, 2021.
Yep.
2020. Virtual, right, it was, right, our virtual meeting days. And we did spend a while working with you to limit the buffer impacts, particularly close to the prime wetland. I don't remember this gravel parking lot being part of that process. Was that installed, has that been in use before?
Was there?
What was the origin of that lot?
It's been there for a very long time. As far back as I could see on what aerial imagery I could get a hold of, it seems to go as far back as the 80s, and it perhaps could go farther back. It's for decades it's been a gravel area that's been used for the dealerships that have occupied the property. We didn't look at that parking lot because we weren't altering what was there. That was an existing condition that we didn't alter. So what we did look at was the areas we were disturbing. So we took a portion of that gravel parking lot and made the paved driveway that currently exists. So that we did consider impact at the time. But this northern area, we left undisturbed. So this would be new alteration to the property. Yeah. Come on up, please.
That area was mostly grass until it got gravel when we renovated the building. It got more gravel when we renovated the building in 2015, 2016, when Jewett Construction came in and used that as their operating
Staging.
So they had 2 trailers there, and that's where they unloaded the steel for the building. And they had like temporary power set up there, and I don't know at the time, that was 2015, I want to say. My mother-in-law was involved in the permitting and the planning board functions then. I didn't attend those meetings, but I don't remember exactly what happened at that point. But that was about the timeline. It got more gravel, and we ended up just having, we parked cars there for a while. We had a trailer there that sold used cars out of it prior to 2015. But definitely more gravel was added around the time of 16. I want to say it was about 2016, 2017. And it's been like that since then. And we've had cars there, we've had weeds go through it. It's not particularly attractive area at the moment, but but it's kind of there. So we thought this would at least make it, it would be nicer, and it would be serving a greater purpose for the public with the chargers there.
Now, the community benefit of the charging station, is that in perpetuity? Does that go away after a year? Is that?
That's in perpetuity.
Okay.
So Ford Motor Company requires any EV dealer to allow access to multiple level 2 and level 3 chargers in perpetuity of the program. It's not free electricity, but it is. We have with Unitil, we haven't figured out the kilowatt per hour chart. That gets a little over my head, but we haven't figured out the charging ramifications and how much. But they have credit cards. You can pay with the Ford Blue Oval network. I think you can use Apple Pay on them. They're pretty
Great.
They're pretty nifty.
Thank you.
And these are the really fast ones. So they'll charge a Lightning. They'll get up to 80-85% on a Lightning in 40 minutes. So they're the big ones.
That's great.
So, anyway. Thank you. Sorry, I just wanted to.
Okay, so the charging is one aspect of this, but then there's also a significant area that's labeled vehicle storage. So in addition to the charging, you're proposing another storage area?
We're proposing to maintain the current use that they have out there of storing inventory. So we would like to still have the ability to store some inventory on this lot. When we looked at this, we wanted to make sure that the proposal we had was going to result in a reduction of impervious, and we would retract the footprint of the area to try to make sure that when we come in, we're going to pull away from the wetland, we're going to retract the impervious area and add treatment. So we did those things kind of preemptively to try to make sure that we were going to be respectful of the wetland and the buffer, and trying to reduce the footprint that's out there now to a smaller one, and ultimately a cleaner one from a stormwater standpoint.
Yeah, if you go over there now, this vehicle's being stored in that gravel area now,
Yep.
or have been for a while. So it's
And I mean,
it's not a new area. You're not
Right.
increasing the gravel
no.
area.
You're not increasing the inventory either, are you? Or you?
No.
I mean, we have plenty of room now.
Okay.
Yeah.
We will,
when things get back to normal, we'll need all the space we have, but right now we're fine.
it'll definitely be a reduction in what they could put there now, because we're going to eat up area to put the charging stations in, and then the spaces associated with them. And then you need an appropriate travel lane, so that, because this is open to the public, it needs to follow appropriate drive lane width, stop control. So that eats up space, and then we did reduce the footprint of it slightly. So we are going to lose some potential storage area doing this. But we see it as an overall benefit because we get to add the charging stations.
Just thinking about the design, I get it's reduced on paper, but it's still you're very close to I'm just having trouble feeling comfortable approving essentially the elimination of the prime wetland buffer.
Well, but aren't you in the prime buffer now? With
they
the
are.
gravel lot?
Yeah, the lot is currently, from a disturbance standpoint, it's disturbed area.
So a gravel is still impervious. It's considered impervious as is hot top. So we currently have an impervious surface within the wetland buffer, prime wetland buffer.
Right.
We're not increasing that. All we're doing is doing some, we're reducing, you say you're reducing it a little bit, but basically you're replacing a lot of the gravel with hot top, which both are considered impervious. Although they're going to try to manage the flow, the drainage, to drainage swales, which doesn't exist today. So, in a sense, you could say that there's going to be an improvement on the stormwater flowing off that site.
Understood.
As I look at it.
The area's been used and trafficked heavily by vehicles for quite a long time. That over time really compacts the soil. I imagine that when they try to tear this up to set the pavement, it's going to be like chipping through concrete because it's going to be very, very, very compact given all that traffic it's had over the years. But yeah, I do want to emphasize the reality on the ground versus what we're proposing. This area, it just sheet flows into the wetland right now. And we wanted to make sure that not only were we reducing the impact, which is a benefit in and of itself, but also capture it and then send it in the right direction, make sure it's cleaned before we discharge back to the wetland. So we wanted to try to tackle this because we are aware we're in close proximity to this wetland and we are within this buffer. So we wanted to tackle this from several different sides.
What are you currently doing with snow storage on that site, and how does that change, or does it not?
The proposal I have, Chris could talk a little better about what they're doing now. What I'm proposing is we utilize the grass area to the west, more towards the dealership and away from the buffer and away from the wetland. So to plow across the driveway and stockpile in the grass area on the other side of the driveway. It's a private driveway, it's a private site, so that they have control over the property, and I think it's a better management practice to stockpile that on the other side of the proposed project and not try to push it up against the wetland, because there's no real estate over there to do that.
Eric, is the east or I guess southeast side of the storage area curbed as well? I can see the line on the north side and on the island, but I'm not clear that the storage area adjacent to the prime wetland.
Where are we?
Is that curbed?
No curbing. We do have some curbing. This is curbed. And that's to make sure that we catch the water that's going to run into it and then force that water down and then spill into the riprap area and then the swale. So there is some curbing, but it's only there as a stormwater directional device. Some portions of the lot are not curbed, but those areas are graded to tip inward, so that water does not drain off the property towards the wetland. It'll drain internally and then be directed to either this swale or this swale.
Did you say there's going to be 5 charging stations?
3.
Oh, 3.
Yeah.
Okay.
But there's 2 bays per station, so there'll be 6 spaces.
6 spaces?
Yep.
So that's 6 potential spaces where vehicles won't be leaking combustible engine fluids. That's a benefit too.
Yep.
Just on the design, I know you have to have some flow around, but you lose a lot of space. I would say maybe half of the space is from the drive portion of it. So you need a separation this driveway that goes to the parking area, that's your own private drive. That's not a public access.
Right,
Right, there's no way to utilize access from the other side, or I don't know, have you worked on that to try and minimize to have that internal driveway seems to like take up a lot of space.
Which driveway?
This driveway, like utilizing the driveway that's there.
Thought it exists.
Yeah, or I'm just saying, is there some way to have the same 6 parking lots for the EV station and that same amount of vehicle parking, but reduce the non-parking area, the flow-through space?
Right, yeah.
To have the same net result for you, but to design it in a way that it's like having a large hallway in a house. You're just, you have a lot of flow space, but it's not actually usable.
Yeah, I'm missing something here. I don't, someone explain what you're...
Like mirror flipping this.
Yeah.
So that it's you pull in this way.
Right.
Yeah.
Or another design. I'm just curious how this design was chosen.
Yeah, but that went from a traffic flow perspective. I think back in the days of the planning board, it's probably not a good idea because you're going to have a flow of traffic going up and down. When you're bringing cars to the lot, you probably want to swing around instead of having access directly on to the the access road.
That's exactly right. That's what drove the design. So I could get into why we landed on what we have here. Because this is open to the public, we wanted to have a very traffic movement light and calm area for them to come in and come out. So we felt like this was from a traffic safety standpoint, a safer location for someone who's not familiar with the site but knows there's a charging station over here to be able to come in and pull in here and not pull in and pull out of a drive lane. That would also put them in close proximity to the main entrance. So there'd be a lot of movements going on. So we felt that it would be a good idea to have them swing in, be in kind of their own area, charge, and then they could back out and then come out. And we're proposing stop control. So because this will be used by the public, we have stop control here, here, and here. So there's no open free movements jumping in and out of any of the drive lanes. But that's really what drove the design. I think if we flipped it, I think you'd end up in a similar configuration because you had the grass island, which is good from an impervious standpoint. You would still need that on the northern side to house the charging stations themselves, and then you'd still need a drive lane so that you could utilize the storage, the inventory storage. So I think if we flipped it, you'd have more quick access from a charging station standpoint, but we feel like it'd be safer doing it this way from a traffic standpoint. I think we'd be in a very similar situation from an impact standpoint.
So I just got my computer working here. So sorry if this is a foolish question.
No problem.
I don't know how to orient this. On the southern side, are you adding any treatment across the road? Or are you envisioning all the stormwater going to that swale?
No, that's a good question.
It is.
Some of the water is going to head to this swale.
Okay.
It does so currently. I modified how much goes south and how much goes north a little bit. But you're gonna get some stormwater heading into this existing swale, which we're gonna make just some small changes to. It'll function the same way.
You're making it bigger, I'm assuming?
Yeah, we'll widen the footprint of the bottom of it. The length's fine. We just have to eat into the grass island hump in the middle, which is fine. That's just some regrading and then we'll restabilize. And the rest of the lot currently just drains back. So we're gonna catch it, move it this way. So this swale is completely new. So we'll install this. From a maintenance standpoint, it's nice because it's right on the driveway. It'll be very easily accessible. They'll be able to see it. So both of these swales are right up front. McFarland Ford does a really good job with their maintenance, a really good job with their landscaping. So these will be very visible, and I imagine that they're going to be kept in good working order.
The revegetation area, are you putting in any new row home? Or, I'm sorry, I'm looking through construction sheets here. Are you
No,
putting
that's
in
okay.
any loam, I guess is my basic question, and just seeding over it?
Yeah, so we'll loam and seed. Any area that we're gonna reclaim, a lot of like the existing swale is already loamed and seeded, so we'll just have to make some changes and then reseed. I think there's sufficient loam there. For the areas that we're gonna reclaim as the old gravel areas, we'll have to tear all that out, and then we're gonna put in new loam and then seed. So we'll revegetate this area, and then that small strip of gravel that we're getting out of, we're gonna revegetate, along with all the areas we're proposing to grade. And then obviously we're using erosion control systems. We're proposing silt sock around the whole perimeter. So while it's not in a stabilized state and open soil, we'll have that. We'll be monitoring it throughout the construction process. I imagine a project of this size, it's about 13,000 square feet of disturbance. We'll be able to do this pretty quickly. So I don't imagine there to be a time frame where there'll be large swaths of unstabilized soil out there.
Yeah, and you came up to the next one. Do you have a schedule on this, for a proposed schedule? Is it like a this year thing, or?
So we're before this committee now. We just submitted for site plan application. That went in today. So hopefully we can get this all approved by the end of this year. And we're hoping to jump on it if weather permitting. December's can sometimes be good, sometimes not be, but we're hoping to jump on this and get this in rather quickly.
Well, didn't he say there is a December deadline?
Yeah.
They need to be working by December 31st.
Yeah, that's the target.
Right.
That's the target.
Or January 1st.
On paper, we can pull that off, but it's, the town of Exeter and the planning board will need to review this and we'll respectively ask for a decision so we can hit that, but, we'll present this to the board. I imagine we're gonna do a TRC. We had the time to get one in. I imagine we'll be scheduling that. I talked to Mr. Sharples, and he indicated that this would be appropriate to go to TRC, so I'm hoping we'll get one of those under our belt before we go to planning board, and hopefully get this in and approved before the deadline.
Okay, any other questions? Should we go?
Was there a question about the wetland scientist stamp not being found on the plans?
Yeah, I didn't see one on there, but you could condition that the final plan be stamped.
Yeah, that we can quickly add that to the plan and make sure that when this gets finalized, that can be included in the plan set. That won't be hard, he's right here.
And I remember back in 2020, I think it was, we took that finger away as prime, so that finger wasn't a prime wetland. Are we still keeping all the prime wetland boundaries as they were back then? I believe that was like up to, sorry to make you stand.
Good memory.
That's a good, yeah, that is good.
Yeah, the finger was,
It's the one that we impacted there, yeah.
yeah,
This one, because it dipped below 50 feet.
yeah, it didn't meet the criteria for prime wetlands, so there was a change done for that. There's nothing similar being done here.
Okay.
The wetland that I show and in my little report, and which has been described here tonight as poorly drained, is this finger that that sort of juts out right into the corner of the existing lot. The prime wetland itself does something like this, and that's on the maps, of record in Concord. I'll also add, in case anyone was wondering, this does not have a state mandated buffer, so we don't have a wetland permit. We're strictly talking about the Exeter overlay district here.
Thank you. Is it condition time?
Do we want to go through the criteria?
Yep.
Okay. So the proposed use is permitted in the zoning district. That's the first one. The second criteria is that there's no alternative design which does not impact a wetland or wetland buffer, or which has less detrimental impact on the wetland or wetland buffers feasible. So I don't know if you want to read your answers to these.
Yeah, I can just go through point by point if you'd like.
Sure.
So jumping back to point one, the underlying zone is C2 highway commercial. So the primary use for the property is a storage vehicle lot, which is allowed use. Item two, the storage lot and electric vehicle charging station design has been reduced to the best extent practical to minimize impacts to wetlands and buffers. The current area is an existing gravel parking lot. The proposed design reduces the impervious area by proposing a smaller pavement footprint than the existing gravel area. So the short one to that is we are still looking to utilize the area for what it's currently being used at. But we realized that we're proposing something new, so we wanted to make sure that the result of the project was a reduction.
Yeah, I guess I'm still having trouble swallowing that. I realize there is a reduction in the impervious area considering the current extent, but it still feels like, to me, there could be more to evaluate. And potentially reduce this lot, and whether or not that's reducing the number of parking spaces in that back part that extends up to it. I don't know.
Well, my answer to that would be, if they don't do this, then the size of the lot stays the same. So the impact stays the same. With this particular project, there's a slight reduction in the impact. So by doing nothing, you haven't reduced the impact, you've kept it there. I mean, it exists now. So,
Yeah, I would note that.
yeah, that's my take.
Because you have an impervious surface already. And now they're going to capture.
I understand.
Yeah. The pulling away from the wetland, I grant you, is small. We're only pulling away a couple feet. But where the design shines is the impervious reduction, because we're looking at about 1,500 square feet of impervious that we're going to get rid of. On a project that's the entire earth disturbance is a little over 13,000 square feet. That's a pretty, in our opinion, a pretty healthy drop in pavement and impervious area, excuse me, from what is there now to what we're proposing.
I think the question, though, is, can you do any more? So,
Yeah.
I mean, maybe not. But I think that's the question that's out there for consideration for whatever. Anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, looking at what we did on the larger storage lot,
Right.
I knew that would be something that the board would be looking for.
Right.
So I just did it. I got ahead of the committee a little bit, and when I looked at it, I said I need to make sure that the footprint's smaller. I have to. I know the committee here in Exeter, and this is an important issue. It's a prime wetland. It's some of the best wetlands that we have in the state. They're designated that way from the state for a reason. So when I designed it knowing that a reduction would be critical. So I went for it, and we could have scored a few more parking spaces, I think, if we just said let's just drop this exactly on the gravel footprint. And that way we can stay, well, at least we're not making it worse. We went ahead and we decided to kill a few extra spots and reduce the footprint preemptively. So that'd be my thoughts on that one part of the article.
What's the third condition?
3, we have the wetland scientist has provided an impact evaluation, includes the function values. We've gone over that. And there's no direct wetland impacts here, so I think we're okay on that one. 4 is that the design, construction, and maintenance of the proposed use will, to the extent feasible, minimize detrimental impacts on the wetland or wetland buffer. As we've gone over this one pretty clearly. The treatment swales and natural perimeter erosion control measures to ensure impacts to the wetland buffer is minimized to the extent practical. You talk here about an operations and maintenance manual.
Yep.
And these procedures will help ensure the features on site continue to function properly for the foreseeable future. So that's item 4. Item 5, the proposed use will not create a hazard to individual or public health, safety, or welfare. I don't see us needing, I think your answer here is sufficient. Unless anyone wants to go into it. Item 6 doesn't really apply. Here, the applicant may propose an increase in wetland buffers elsewhere on the site that surround a wetland equal or greater size and equal or greater functional value than the impacted wetland. There is a conservation easement. I guess that's your answer here. Do you want to read that one?
Yeah, so as part of the larger storage lot that we've been referencing this evening a couple of times, we, as a part of that application, worked a deed restriction in to the project for the rear of the property. It's a fairly large area. So there are large pockets of uplands to the rear of the property, and then a large portion of that prime wetland we've been discussing. As part of that application, we deed restricted 18.7 acres. And then in addition to that, there is a conservation easement, which has been in place prior to this one. So now we have 2 avenues of protecting this area to the rear, which has a lot of it's wooded. There's large upland pockets, and it houses a large portion of that prime wetland. So we feel like this is a substantial part of the property that we're committing to locking up and leaving undisturbed going forward in perpetuity.
Okay. Item 7 is about in cases where the proposed use is temporary or construction activity disturbs areas adjacent to the immediate use, the applicant has included a restoration proposal revegetating any disturbed areas within the buffer with the goal to restore the site as nearly as possible to the original grade and condition following construction. There will be some green space. So you're talking about loaming and seeding areas outside of the final construction area.
Yeah, any area that's not riprap or pavement, we're committing to loam and seeding and then having that return to a vegetative state. We're going to be using erosion controls, following best management practices for loaming and seeding. So a lot of that is worked into the design to make sure that only the absolute minimum amount of area we need for pavement is going to be permanent impacts. Every other portion of the development area, we want to make sure it gets returned to a green state and be vegetated.
And the seed mix you use is just a normal seed mix, or do you have is that spec'd out? I didn't look at that. I guess it's adjacent to a prime
Yeah.
wetland, so you may want to put some thought into what is actually planted.
Right. The areas in the front, I think it would be appropriate to use a traditional seed mix. You know, these more landscape type areas.
Yeah. What about the back corner?
The back perimeter, we could look at using a more native seed mix. Brendan, I don't know if you have any thoughts on a seed mix for that we could implement.
Yeah, that's an easy one.
You should stand up and speak into the microphone, unfortunately.
That's a pretty easy one. We can certainly do that. And I think it would take pretty well. If you went out there now, you'd see it's kind of dense all along the edge of that parking lot. So that's going to probably extend right out. But nevertheless, you put down a seed mix that's really designed for buffer restoration areas, it certainly can't hurt. So.
Okay.
So those areas will be not just returned to green space, but there's an opportunity to return them to effective buffer areas.
Or are they going to be mowed? Are you planning to mow a perimeter around the parking lot? What's the maintenance?
The front swales and the landscaping will need to mow regularly. But the rear perimeter of the proposed parking lot, if there aren't any objections from McFarland Ford, we could leave them in a non-mowed state. So we could get more traditional native species just growing and just remaining in a natural state on this rear perimeter. So what I'm thinking we're talking about here is right in here.
Yeah.
It looks like there's an electrical cabinet in the...
Yep, we do, yes. We do have, just to kind of quickly go into that, so these need a lot of power. Currently, there's only single phase, so we got to upgrade that to triple phase, which I'm sure we'll get into great detail with the planning board. But we're going to bring triple phases here. We're going to bring it across. There is an existing pole. And then we're going to drop a proposed electrical cabinet here, and then this system will feed the 3 charging stations. So there is an electrical cabinet there. So we could probably have a large portion of this with more native species, but I think on this side it'd be appropriate to have it as a more traditional grass so they could access it.
Okay.
But I mean, I think we could commit to having a condition of the adjacent side slopes of open space to the wetland to utilize a native species seed mix, and we could coordinate with Gove Environmental on a spec for that. We've done that many times with Gove Environmental. Those are commonly used in the state, so I think we'd be fine committing to that.
Okay. So that was a bit of a tangent, but the last item is that you're going to obtain other required permits. It seems like you've described that sufficiently. Any other comments, or does someone want to make a motion?
This is for a conditional wetlands permit?
Wetland conditional use permit.
I'm sorry.
Wetland conditional use permit.
Move that we recommend to the planning board, is that correct? A conditional, wetlands conditional use permit for this project.
Or not oppose.
Okay.
Traditionally, it's a not opposed,
Okay.
but it could be whatever you want.
All right. Move that we inform the planning board that we are not opposed to the wetlands conditional permit for the McFarland Ford charging station project. For us tonight.
Second.
Any other discussion? So no conditions, other than no conditions, okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Anyone abstain? Okay, motion passes.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, guys. I think it's exciting to get some charging stations that the public has access to. I think that's, I am, thank McFarland Ford, thank McFarland Ford for that. Well, we don't have enough charging stations around town apparently, but this will help. And the fact that the public can have access to it is great. Thank you.
Hey, over chat. Thank you.
All right, so up next we have a drinking water trust fund grant application for conservation land to be held in easement by the Southeast Land Trust. So we have Jeremy here to discuss that. We did have a site visit at 7:30 today to go out and see the property.
Yeah.
Or at 5:30, sorry.
Thank you.
So Jeremy, take it away.
Thank you, and I'll try to be a little bit brief because I do still get to Kensington. So tonight I have just a couple things to chat with you all about. We met, I believe it was just last month, although it feels like it was a few months ago. So we're still anticipating submitting our application on the 29th to the Drinking Water Trust Fund. We didn't talk about it much out in the field this afternoon, but pretty sure I have Chris on board with a purchase and sale agreement, which I hope to have him sign in the next week or so. We're just ironing out a few final details, which I think we can talk about tonight. Some of the last steps that we have before us here, obviously we would need a final commitment from the Conservation Commission via public hearing. We're also going to need a letter of support from both the Conservation Commission and the Select Board for the application. And then we're also hoping to get a letter of support from the Department of Public Works or the Water Department. Those are all things that I recognize we may not get in time for the application on the 29th, but I think we should strive to get as soon as possible and likely let the Advisory Commission know that those things are in process if they're not completed by the 29th. For those of you that weren't out on the site walk, the maps are attached, and on the very back is the proposed budget. So I think just to update you, the only thing that's really changed since the last time I met with the full commission, Kensington did agree to commit funds. That's why I'm going to their meeting later tonight. They agreed to commit all but 10,000 of what they had in their conservation fund, which turned out to be 113,000. So you'll see they have 103,000 committed. I met with East Kingston last night. They have tentatively agreed to commit 100,000. We're arranging to have that public hearing later this month. Same thing with both of those towns. We're going to have it co-held with their select board so that the select board can also provide a letter of support. So those are all the moving parts. Again, I apologize for the speed at which the project has happened, and it's been a little bit of a challenge coordinating all three towns for this, but I think we're doing the best we can. I'm happy to answer any questions that may have come up during the site walk. I know we were spread out a little bit, and it may have been a little bit difficult to ask all the questions with the landowner there, so I'm happy to follow up on any questions that might have come up.
I just was concerned about any parking for public access.
Yeah, so I think it is probably good to talk a little bit about the public access piece because we had some conversations, maybe individually or the whole group wasn't able to hear. I think Chris is being somewhat generous in that he's essentially agreed to public access in all but the times of the year when there's hunting taking place. And I think he's concerned about that because there are people hunting out there and because his wife rides horses so much, he doesn't want there to be some kind of conflict there. My tentative feelings about that are this isn't really a recreation project. It is private land. And if we were to talk about a parking area, who would be responsible for maintaining trails, for example, on the property? It certainly wouldn't be the landowner. We couldn't ask a private landowner in perpetuity to maintain trails. So would that be something that the town would maintain or?
The town of, I don't know that we could connect
Right.
Public Works to do that.
Well, and the trails are mostly in the other town's property as well, so,
But the only road access
Well,
would
the only
be,
access is Powder Mill, right?
right?
yeah.
So one of the things I had said, I don't think to the whole group, but when the Southeast Land Trust does projects, when the Southeast Land Trust is going to own a property and we're going to be building trails and we know in perpetuity we're going to be managing those trails and keeping the property open for public access, we definitely consider a parking area. In fact, we build them on those reservations. But when we're conserving private land and there isn't a well-defined, already useful trail network on the property, we tend not to try to create one. So I'm a little bit hesitant to make a requirement for the landowner to create a parking area because then we do have to think about who maintains those trails long-term. And if the landowner is uncomfortable keeping the property open for a certain time of year, then would it be the land trust that would have to enforce that? Or the landowner? Or then it becomes a question of enforcement. So right now the land isn't posted. Anyone can walk on the property just like any other property in New Hampshire that isn't posted. So my point is just that we're getting a lot of conservation value from this project. We're protecting Exeter's drinking water. We're conserving really good wildlife habitat, really productive farmland soils. There are a lot of wildlife species and plant communities within a mile of the property that are listed with the Natural Heritage Bureau. We're getting a lot of conservation value from this. Recreation, maybe one of them that could be enjoyed passively and informally, but I don't know that, I just think it'd be really complex to try to figure out how to make that work in perpetuity. So that's my take on it, but.
So you do it often one way or the other? It's for recreation or just to conserve land?
I'd say that if we're trying to conserve a property where there's already a trail network associated with it, a lot of times we're there because of the trail network, and we want to maintain that. But in this case, that's not the case. There is a fabulous trail network, but it's really just being used by the landowner and his wife and, maybe some neighbors that know about it. I know it was nice to hear that he will keep it open for public access, but that he's concerned about the kind of the conflict during hunting season. I don't think he posts his land during the hunting season right now, so technically, he wouldn't be prohibiting people from using it in that sense, but I don't know that he's really thought that through either. I guess I'm just saying I caution sort of putting the full brakes on the project and trying to think through this fairly complex issue that is something that we really need to think through in perpetuity as to whether we we mount the effort to maintain trails in perpetuity, and do we really say to Chris, we're not going to do this project unless you allow access year-round forever?
And so with CELT as the easement holder, it wouldn't be up to the town of Exeter to enforce, if that becomes a term of the easement, it wouldn't be up to the town to enforce the seasonal closure.
No, it would be up to us as the easement holder, but you would have a right of enforcement. So you would have the right to enforce that. But as the easement holder, it's our duty to enforce the easement.
Couldn't the town also be a secondary easement holder?
Well, yeah, that's the executory interest.
Executor, thank you.
Yep.
I knew the term,
Yep.
because we have that in a couple of parcels in town.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure, I don't know, maybe East Kingston and Kennington would want to do the same.
That's how we have it structured. So each town will hold an executory interest in the portion of the easement that's within their own town. The other piece that I mentioned while we were out there, and I know the financial side of it doesn't play well when you say it out loud, but in this case, the easement is worth over $1.2 million. The landowner right now is agreeing to almost a 50% reduction in that value. So he's doing a bargain sale over $500,000. He's taking I think it's $580,000 less than it's worth. So when you think about that, you think about what three communities are bringing to the table and what he's giving up, I think you're getting a lot of value for that $100,000. So it's not my decision. This is just my thoughts on the public access piece.
And I know we talked about it a little bit on the site walk, or Drew, I think you brought it up, a question as to whether Phil was brought in. Is there will Southeast Land Trust through your process do like a environmental assessment or?
Yeah, so we'll do a phase 1 environmental assessment. So that'll include both the sort of web-based search to make sure there isn't any leaks or hazardous waste spills upstream, uphill of the property, but they'll also do a thorough walk of the property. If they see anything that raises their eyebrow, they'll take the next step, and then they'll inform us of it. Basically, what they'll do is they'll tell us there's some type of environmental condition that should be looked into further, and then it'd be up to us to do that. And it's essentially a liability for the land trust to take on, something like that. So that's when we would take the next step. But at this time, I don't know if anyone else saw it, but seeing bricks out there and in the fill, there are bricks all over that property. It was a brickyard. So, and I think the area that we walked up, I do think that some of that was fill that was brought in, but I think he was trying to build up that area because that's, the trail moving its way up into the trail network from the area that they're grading right now. So I wish I had a chance to ask him right there, but he was kind of a little too far ahead, so.
I have one question about the no parking, so I didn't make the site walk. I'm concerned about conservation land and we keeping the public from it, or a parking lot. I understand when we have wetlands that we're concerned about. Are there wetlands here, or we're just, that we're trying to protect?
Yes.
Where there would be a parking lot?
No.
Public access?
Yes.
In the Exeter Park?
So there are a lot of wetlands on the property, but we're not planning any parking areas near them.
Okay, so from the Exeter access, we could have a parking area for people that would not affect wetlands or any concerns of that nature, right?
Well, so we don't own this. We're not going to own it. It's still private. We're just obtaining an easement, a conservation easement
yes.
that prevents it from being developed.
But it was mentioned that it would have public access to it. The public would be able to access, right?
Only on foot.
Only on foot during certain times of year.
Where would they park to access it?
They wouldn't.
They wouldn't.
That's my point. And that's a concern of mine. It has been. So I just want to clarify.
I think
before it comes before the board, the select board.
I think you're looking at this not really from a recreation value as much as a conservation value.
No, I understand.
So
but the public is paying for it, so I just want to make sure we all understand the
Right.
limits. That's it.
I believe that's a good point, that the Hanson piece that we bought, conservation easement that we purchased 15 years ago, 10 years ago, there's no public access to that either.
No.
Correct.
Okay, so that also is just to preserve.
Harrington is another
preserve that
one.
area
There's
from
several.
further development.
Callahan.
So that's right across, well, it's almost across the street from Hanson if you look at the map.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Yeah, it is.
It
And like
is.
I said, we do a lot of projects with towns, either where Celt's owning the property or town is purchasing a property. In those cases, parking areas, trails are very much a part of those projects. But in cases with conservation easements where the land is staying in private hands, it's very uncommon to install a parking area on private land.
Did you say that there's access today for hunting? People are allowed to hunt on their property currently?
Well, so the way he described it today was that he allows some friends to hunt there.
Okay, so it's permission with the landowner permission.
But I didn't see any posted signs.
Right.
So
No.
I said he might also be a little confused on that. I'm sure it's likely that probably some hunters use his land and he might not even know about it.
So down the bank where we were standing, there were 2 posted signs down by the creek.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
So as we went down the hill, they're up on
So
the
if they were
trees.
coming up?
Yeah, so if you're coming from the creek, there were 2.
Interesting. Yeah. So I didn't notice those.
That might be worth discussing with them, the posted.
Yeah, yeah. And I'm happy to,
That's
again,
not on the Exeter side, obviously.
yeah. I'm happy to have those conversations with them. I don't know where the other towns fall. They have, the question of public access has only come up in Exeter. Of course, you all have the road frontage, so I think it's maybe a little more in the forefront of your mind. But
It's a good project to do. It just would be nice to have public access. It's not required, but it would be a
Yeah.
bonus. right?
Yeah.
So that's where I think the concerns.
yeah.
There's a separate drive into the gravel area. I don't know what the plan, and that's gonna be in our construction area, and in our easement area. And that wasn't actually, we didn't talk about that access. So does he have a plan for that?
Yeah, so that was something actually when you and I were walking and I said there's something we were going to talk about tonight. That's actually something I wanted to talk about. That little road there, the plan is to exclude it. There's the boundary there, you see it it looks like it snakes, but that's actually a stone wall boundary and it almost follows that road in parallel all the way back to the old gravel area. The plan is to actually have a very thin ribbon of excluded area there because Chris uses it for parking his horse trailers and his RV and other things. And I've had conversations with him and, well, let me back up. It may either be excluded or it may be an area where we allow him a reserved right to park things that normally wouldn't be in a conservation easement area. Right now he has an RV there, for example.
Is that the area right along the border?
It's right along the northern boundary off of Powder Mill Road.
You can see that.
Yeah. So initially I had told him we don't allow parking RVs on easement land. I had a conversation with my stewardship director today and I said, is that hard and fast? And she said, no, we could allow a reserved right in a case like that. In fact, we could allow a reserved right that expires when the landowner sells the property. So that might be a good alternative. We're trying to find a middle ground so we can get this project done. In a way, we have a landowner that's only going to be here for a brief moment in time, and then this land's going to be protected forever. So that's what we're trying to accomplish here. But there are a few things that he's seeming to be pretty firm about, and that's one of them.
Could the public access ever change down the road?
We could always go back and make that request.
I think if that was something that you wanted to die over the sword on, I would recommend doing it now while we're doing the conservation easement.
Yeah, I don't know if you could do some sort of horse trade, to use bad pun, for, you know, you're talking about creating a parking lot, but couldn't we just say you'll allow people to just pull off to the side of that existing gravel? It's pretty wide. I mean, that's where the trucks were going through. Couldn't like you have a 30-foot stretch of the initial part of that road that says, you know, like that they allow parking. Yeah. You wouldn't have to do anything. It already exists as a access point.
I could absolutely try that. Yeah.
And then you say, yeah, you can park your RV in part of it, but we could also, people could have limited parking there for certain times of year.
Yep. I'd be happy to ask that. I probably shouldn't. It's like I probably shouldn't open the hood and show you all the dirty work the mechanics do behind the scenes in land conservation, but I've been negotiating pretty hard with Chris over the past 3 or 4 weeks over this bargain sale because it's a huge one.
Yeah.
If you all recall, when he purchased this property, Kensington's Conservation Commission told him that they would pay him $650,000 for an easement. So he bought the property thinking that he was going to get paid that for an easement, and he's been carrying that note for over 10 years and paying on it. So he feels really slighted for that. And so for him to be taking a $580,000 bargain sale is really hard for him to swallow that. And so there's been already a lot of back and forth. And one of the back and forths was, if I'm making this huge bargain sale, the least that you could do is allow me to keep parking my RV in that area. And so I'm happy to ask him about, you know, can Exeter be given a small parking area there? But I can't guarantee what he's going to say. So that's just a little bit behind the scenes what it.
I don't think that should be a deal breaker.
Yeah, that's what I'm afraid of, is that we're this close with them.
I don't know how other people feel about this, but
We've got plenty of recreational area.
Yeah.
That if things are on a knife's edge like this, why risk it?
Well, another point, and I agree. Another point is that on Powder Mill by the old landfill, there's an area there where you could actually pull off maybe 2 or 3 vehicles on the side of Powder Mill.
There's various spots where there's shoulder.
But there's a kind of a shoulder where the old landfill used to be, or one of the old landfills. So, I mean, that's just still up the road. But the part that really concerns me is in the Exeter part, which is a smaller portion. I mean, the gravel operation has really done a number on the natural terrain over there. And I mean, you know, that's what we're preserving, a gravel pit.
Well, it's being turned into a hayfield. It's all level right now, and they're proposing to there's more leveling, I guess, and then he said they're going to loam it.
But if he still wants to have access to get in there, to process more gravel?
No, he just wants a small parking area to remain for.
It's no longer gravel.
For his RVs.
Yeah.
And then the big pit is going to be reclaimed.
Looks good.
So the gravel operation has ceased. It's been done for over a year. He's had crews in there regrading it. He still has a little bit more grading to do, then they're going to be putting loam down and seeding it. It's been a really tough summer to do that work because there's just been so much moisture delayed.
One thing with parking too, we'd have to maintain it and decide who's going to maintain it, how, and what.
It's definitely not something you could ask the landowner to maintain.
Yeah, right.
So, I'm right there with Dave. I'm trying to walk around it delicately because it's, I want to support your concerns and your desires for this project, but we are on a knife's edge right now, and we need to get Chris on board here if we're going to make this project work. And I'm really nervous that we're going to tip him over the edge with something.
Yeah.
So.
All right. Well, yeah. Maybe we don't. I guess it's just sort of weird that there is this access road, but that and that's in our conservation easement, but it's not clear what the use of that road is for. You know what I mean? It's not a traditional, it's not the farmland, it's not the
Yeah, but what happens,
forested
what
area.
happens the first time he comes back from a trip with his RV, goes to pull in there, and there's two cars parked side by side? You know?
Right.
You're opening up a whole,
I'm okay with no parking at
so
the
let's
site.
just leave it at that then.
Yeah.
Jeremy, I know, so is this protection of the watershed for drinking water, or is there a future opportunity for the town to extract water?
Yeah, so this is just protection of the watershed here. The whole property is within the Exeter River watershed. It's all draining down to Grape Brook, and
I just wanted
it's
that.
within the hydrologic area concern. So it's ripe for this drinking water trust fund, which is why we identified the fund, which is why we're here. We're going to be crossing our fingers on this one too, because we're asking the trust fund for $500,000. That's going to be a big ask in a competitive year. So all the cards have to fall into place right now.
Yeah.
With all three towns. We need to put our best foot forward. We need to be that application that has funding in place, landowner in agreement, and ready and willing to accept their award.
From my perspective, I think we want to make your job as easy as possible, so it can go forward. So
what do you need right tonight from us?
It's really just about coordinating logistics and figuring out the best way to connect the Conservation Commission with the Select Board, arrange the public hearing, and get a letter of support from the CONSCOM, the Select Board, and the Water Department. So however Kristen thinks, and Andrew, the best way to coordinate those tasks.
So I guess my feeling is the Conservation Commission has the ability to move and motion for a letter of support tonight, and then advocate for it before the Select Board.
Okay.
I don't think that they need a public hearing to do that. They would to expend the $100,000.
Right.
And to accept the property. But in my mind, we can at least get one of the items before you in the deadline, and then work toward the others. That's kind of my thought, but.
Yeah, so the public hearing I was referring to is for the funding commitment.
Okay.
Not the letter of support. So yeah, I agree. Let's get the letter of support taken care of. And then you could coordinate that select board hearing. But I'm not sure I know the public hearing notification or notice is 10 day.
Yeah.
So we're already getting kind of close to the 29th. So I don't know how you feel about that or what calendars look like. So the way it's working in the other towns, as far as I understand, Kensington, who I'm going to right now, their plan is to have a co-meeting with their select board on the 25th, where they're going to hold their public hearing, commit funds, and do their dual letter of support. East Kingston, unfortunately, their next meeting is the 18th, so we don't have enough time to notice. So we're going to get their commitment at a public hearing on October 2nd. So we're just going to have to let the advisory commission know that the funding commitment is going to be 3 days after the application is submitted.
So where does the
That is my question.
come from?
We had talked about that at the last meeting. I believe we had talked about it coming from the conservation fund for this particular project.
Yeah.
Do we have that in there?
Yeah, you have about 137,000.
The last 2 years we've committed.
No,
The town has committed 50,000 each, so that's 100,000 that we have.
Can I give you the select board schedule that I know of? So the next meeting we have is Monday the 25th, but the budget is that night. You can still talk to Nico about, but just so you know, because we just did the schedule last night. And then for October, we're on the 2nd. So the 16th, I don't, what was your deadline again?
Well, the 29th of September is when the application
Okay,
is due.
so really, you're stuck with the 25th if you can, if Nico can get it on the agenda.
I would ask either Mr. Dean or the chair, he go over what's on the agenda. Maybe a letter or, I don't know, what's the best way to get a hold of them and do that?
Email,
Email?
that way he's got it in front of him.
True. If we move forward tonight, send an email to the town manager and to the chair of the select board asking if we could appear before them.
And then we would need
Monday
the
night.
10 days ahead of, so that would be this week, we would need to get.
By Friday.
By Friday,
Yeah.
get the notice.
Yeah. Well, there's no notice. What notice?
Would we need a notice?
Yeah, so
Yes.
public hearing. Go
This is
ahead.
a public hearing? I thought it wasn't.
So public hearing to expend the $100,000 for acquisition of conservation lands. There's a 10-day posting in the paper.
Correct.
Yeah.
I thought the first step was to go before the board.
We
Yeah.
need to do both.
The point, I think doing it that way, you do both at once.
So you're not gonna get that done you're not gonna get that for next Monday night?
No, it's a week from Monday.
A week from Monday.
25th, so, but I
Yeah.
would definitely suggest that you reach out to Nico tomorrow.
13 days, yes,
So,
we've got 13
because
days.
he plans the agenda ahead of time and tries to prioritize. So if he has that, he can see what he can do for you.
Yeah,
The sooner the better.
Yeah.
like by tomorrow.
Yeah, so tomorrow we'll
Get the process started.
figure
Yeah,
this
I just
out.
didn't want to take any action until we
Yeah.
have this
Correct.
meeting.
The,
Suggestion.
Yeah, and I can plan on going, or others can, just to show support.
What time do your meetings start?
7 typically,
But I don't know where.
but it's a
we'll be.
budget night. It's a budget night, it's an introduction.
Okay.
So again, I'm not the chair, so I don't make the agenda, but just keep an eye on the start time.
All right.
So then, as an alternate option, should that not work, I would suggest that we still discuss tonight and a vote for a letter of support from the Conservation Commission
Let's do
with
that.
a date for public hearing that you can then share.
Yep. That would be great.
Does that make
I have one more question.
Yeah, absolutely.
What happens if the $500,000 grant, the drinking water grant, doesn't either get approved or doesn't completely get approved? Like, what happens if they say, we'll give you 300?
Yeah, that's a great question. We're going to have to really think hard about that. So we'll be signing a purchase and sale agreement with Chris that has a funding contingency in it that says if we're unable to raise all the funds, we're released from the purchase and sale agreement, essentially. And all of the public hearings will be contingent on securing necessary funding. So we're going to do the best we can. We may even have to, I don't know, we may have to think about doing some private fundraising to try to bridge a gap. I'm really going to be, that's why I really want to try to submit as tight an application as possible on this one. Because I know there are a lot of other applications out there that everyone's rushing to get them put together and they're not all going to be ready to go. So, but we're all doing the best we can. It's no knock to anyone here. We're doing the best we can with the timing we have.
I'll make a motion that,
I won't we let one of the other two alternates be a voting member on this time, for this motion? One of the other two alternates should,
Okay,
not me, this time.
you're out.
I'm out.
Okay.
We'll share.
Dave?
okay, I make a motion that the Conservation Commission will provide a letter of support for this particular project.
Second.
Before we take the vote, let's identify the voters. Valerie?
I'll vote this time.
Michelle. Okay, thank you.
Is that okay?
Thank you, Valerie.
So we have a second.
So, we have a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 All those opposed? None. The motion carries. So we'll pull together a memo. And yeah, we'll be in touch because we'll be in touch about the water department.
That sounds
memo
good.
And scheduling with the select board.
Yeah, that sounds great. Let me know. I'm happy to come to any and all meetings. We'll just have to coordinate because Kensington has one on the 25th and East Kingston has one on the 2nd. So
The calendar says the 29th. There's a 9 a.m. select board meeting. I don't know.
It's a special meeting. It's on the vote.
yeah, thank
For the
you.
siphon.
We'll be in touch probably.
Oh, okay.
I forgot, defect.
Thank you all.
Something or another.
Luck on your next stop.
Come to vote. Pardon me?
At the special town meeting.
And thank you, Lynette.
Yes, but because we missed the deadline, we have to have that like 2-hour.
Okay, so that's something else.
It is definitely something else.
Okay. Thank you guys for bearing with us here. All right, Lynette, thank you for being patient. Jeremy said that if you didn't hear him on his way out.
I did catch it. Yes, I heard him.
All right, so
Hello, all. Can you guys hear me to start? Because I switched headset.
we can.
Yes.
So we're okay. It's
Okay.
a little muddied, but it's okay.
Okay. Well, I can move off of it, so let me know if that changes.
Nope, you're good.
All right, let's go.
All right, so do you want to introduce what we're talking about tonight? I wasn't able to attend the site meeting yesterday, but I know some others were.
Yeah, absolutely. So thanks for having me. And I am, let's see, I'm going to switch screens here. So wanted to talk with you about another DWGDF drinking water application that we're hoping to submit the end of this month. So you all very kindly wrote an initial letter of support for the pre-application for a meeting back in July. And so we're here to request an updated letter of support that has some contingencies centered around some issues that I think I referenced in the July meeting with regards to title review and boundary review by the town. And so we'd like to get an updated letter of support for that application, kind of referring to those contingencies for the project. But I guess just backing up, since a number of you, I think, had the chance to see the property at a site visit yesterday. Is that right?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
I think we had three Conservation Commission members in attendance.
Okay, great. And my video of you has disappeared.
Oh.
Yeah.
Are you all seeing that?
For a second.
That's okay, but.
We're here. I don't know why my videos.
Oh, we see you.
That's okay.
Oh, I think it's because, we see, because you're the video rather than me. Okay.
Gotcha. Okay. So the property is 148 acres total, and it spans between Newfields and Exeter. I'll actually go ahead and share my screen and a map. So let's see here. Okay, are you all seeing a map, hopefully, of the property?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, fantastic. So 148 acres between the Newfields and the Exeter side. So Exeter in this map is the orange portion, and that's 47 acres. And it's north of, as I'm sure you all know, the Oakland Town Forest and connected by trails. So there's quite an extensive trail network. I know the commission's quite familiar with the trails and the Fort Rock network here. I think we mapped out about 3+ miles of trails on the about 50-acre Exeter piece, and then another 9 miles or so, 8 miles on the 100 acres that's in Newfield. So the project we're looking at is as a whole, but of course I'm here to talk to you about just the Exeter portion. And what we're proposing is this is a fee purchase, so different than the last project as a conservation easement. This would be a fee title purchase by the town of Exeter of that orange portion and adding it to the town forest. We do have to work out those title and boundary issues prior to, because this map shows clean lines that other maps don't show, and there's some overlap that needs to get worked out. And then on the Newfield side, we're also proposing that the town of Newfield would purchase that portion and add it to the Inland Acres Town Forest. And what sets this apart to some degree, well, one, I think it has very strong conservation values, which is why we're proposing to the drinking water grant. It's in a wellhead protection area. I'll show that map in just a minute. But two, very high recreational values with the trail system that's there, and an opportunity to also have this become a community forest that is managed by a community forest committee, ideally with representatives from both conservation commissions. So I'm really happy that you all had the chance to meet with the Newfield Conservation Commission yesterday and walk the property. I apologize I couldn't be there. I'll definitely be there for the next one. But I think there could be some co-management discussions between the two towns for this portion of property. And again, the idea is to have it become a community forest with a standing committee to help with some of those management questions. On the north side here, there was a lot of discussion in the last project about public access. So public access is a key part of this project with a proposed future parking area. Now, of course, this is on the Newfield side, but I imagine some Exeter residents will use it at some point on the northern part. And then on the Exeter side, of course, the access is from the Oaklands Town Forest itself. So let's see, I wanted to just quickly show you a budget. So where we are in budget is we did get an appraisal. I think that we discussed that in the July meeting. So the appraisal portion for the Exeter 47 acres came out to about 1.6 million. And the reason for that is that the appraisal is the larger parcel, is 150 acres. And so it's a yellow book appraisal that has to meet federal standards because we are proposing a federal funding source. For that is identifying the larger parcel. And in this case, the larger parcel is 150 acres. There's not a separate appraisal for just the 47 acres since we're looking at, selling the landowner's looking at selling the full 150. And so as a result, the highest and best use is determined to be the development, the proposed subdivision plan that's proposed in Newfield, even though the Exeter site is proposed as kind of conservation backlands to that subdivision. The larger parcel, highest and best use is across that full 150 acres. So the allocated value to the Exeter site is about 1.6 million. And we're also requesting proposing to request the full 500,000 from the drinking water grant, which is their maximum. And the balance of that we're proposing would be a request from the town of Exeter to bond that amount and pay it off over time. I put in parentheses here, or possibly SRF loan. And the reason for that is we worked with the town of Newfields, which is a little bit further along in this process in the spring, to submit an application, which was the first of its kind, to DES for a state revolving fund, Clean Water State Revolving Fund loan request. In that case, for the Newfield side, it was for about $2.5 million. That was approved or recommended for award. We're still going through the process. And so that would take the place of the town bond on the Newfield side. There may be the possibility, and I have to talk with DES about this to see if the timing would work to still fit within a 2025 close. We'd like to close in the first half of 2025. So if the timing works for us to request an SRF loan for the Exeter side this spring, we'll certainly look into that. So that could take the place of a bond. Either way, it would have to be approved by the town because it's still a loan that needs to be paid back. But the benefit of that is that some portion of it could be forgiven. So that's the current budget. So right now it's just one grant on the Exeter side, and we've racked our heads kind of on all funding sources, and this is where we are with the potential to have an SRF loan. Let me just pause there and see if there are any questions on budget.
I have a question for Nancy, actually. She's the select board representative to the Conservation Commission. What is the select board's appetite for taking on more bonding?
that gets vetted out in the budget process.
I know,
That
but
goes year to year, so
What's your feeling of the pulse?
I don't have a feeling.
Because everything else is moot if.
Yeah, but I can't commit. I can't commit anything for this. That's so, my role here, is I'm the select board rep, but I still have to ask questions for the entirety of the town, right? So I can't tell you if the select board would support something like this. I mean, we all support conservation land, we have a history of that, right?
Right.
But we have to, when we go through the budget process, which starts the Monday night of the 25th, we have to look at the whole picture.
Right, I know. And with the siphon issue this year.
Oh, there's a lot of more than that, yeah.
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 You know, let me rephrase the question, maybe to try to get an answer for Dave. I know where he's going, and that's where I would be going too.
Okay.
In typical years, we prepared for this, we would have put this on the CIP, as a CIP, as a capital improvement project, wouldn't we? $1 million bond would be a capital improvement project, would it not?
Yeah.
I assume it would be.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
I've seen some of the capital improvements projects for proposed this year. Do we have any idea? Has the planning board given a recommendation yet which ones to move forward with?
All of them.
All of them?
All of them that are proposed for next year.
Wow.
And with a strong recommendation to support the facilities project for the police department and the substation for the fire.
Yeah, and you haven't seen the budget yet, of course, as you say.
No, that's coming.
So we don't know what that is, what the final budget will be. So I think what we're talking about is that it's a potential of seeing an enormous, a rather significant amount of projects or capital improvement projects turning out to be warrant articles this year, or March of this year. $1,142,000
$1,142,000,
bond
yeah.
would be a warrant article also.
Right.
I mean,
there's going to be some priorities.
There's going to be some priorities.
Yeah.
But I don't know what those are yet, right, because I haven't seen the whole picture.
No.
So we haven't had that conversation yet.
Throwing my old select board hat on, which
I always appreciate.
has nothing to do with anything right now.
No,
I would
you have the knowledge.
I would be very nervous about moving forward with. I always was nervous about moving forward with a lot of big budget items to the town, and I found when we did that, we had big project here, big project here. They both got voted down.
Right.
It happened a couple of times.
We have overwhelmed voters.
Overwhelmed voters.
Yeah.
I'm just concerned here that, are we throwing another potential large project, which is a bond, I understand, at the voters? I'm wondering more, is the appetite of the voters more than the appetite of the select board?
Well, there's a lot of work that
needs to be done.
Oh,
yeah, in town.
And if it's not going to go anywhere.
Right.
There's no guarantee, right? So the idea is just to keep talking about it and see where it leads at this point. That's what my thought would be anyway.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a good project. It abuts a huge conservation piece we already have. Right? I mean, I'm seeing the potential, but when I see the dollar number, my eyes pop out of my head just a little.
Yeah.
I mean, to be honest, but I'm one of five, and then you know the budget process. I mean, we go through the budget committee.
I know.
And then it comes to the select board, and we either recommend or don't, and we vote on each recommendation, then it goes to deliberative, and then it goes to the voters in March. So we
I have a
quite
question, do we have to do it for next year? Because it's not going to close till 2025. Can we think about it for next year?
Well, then it wouldn't potentially get voted on by the town until the spring of 2025.
I know. No, yes, I know.
Right. Yeah, this is the first time we can put this before the voters. Yeah.
Hello.
I can weigh in a little bit on the timeline. So certainly the preference would be to have it voted on this March. I think it would not be I'm hoping that there would be opening, if that's a non-starter with the town, and we're not able to move that forward, there would still be the possibility of voting on it the following year and being able to close bill in that first half of 2025. So my thought with the drinking water grant, also as I think we've discussed before, but I've subsequently learned more, and Jeremy referred to this, that the drinking water grant is very competitive this year. So I think we have maybe a 50-50 chance of getting that grant, particularly if there's some readiness issues regarding kind of the title and boundary, and first things first for the town, that absolutely needs to be cleaned up to the town's satisfaction before the town can move forward in formal support beyond the Conservation Commission. So given that readiness question, there will be some dings on our application to drinking water, but I still think it's a strong enough project to propose this year, and at least if we propose it, we're sort of in the running for it. We're on their radar, and we have a better chance of coming back next year if we are not selected and getting selected next year. So I think we hope to get funded this year. We hope that it works out with the town to consider the warrant article in March. If that doesn't work, we've at least put our hat in the ring, and we're better positioned to reapply for funding next year and then to revisit the town request and hopefully still be within our 2025 close.
Aren't we kind of also, to some degree, competing with ourselves here with the project Jeremy proposed? Is there any risk involved in the same town essentially putting in a request for the same amount of money for two different projects and one project knocking the other one off?
There certainly would be that risk. All projects are competing against each other in the same pool. I think it's a good thing for Exeter to have multiple great conservation projects at the table. I think if it really came to that, there's probably a way that we could communicate, or if the Conservation Commission even wanted to, have preference of one project over another, particularly based on timeline issues for those projects, we could find a way to communicate that to the grant committee so that it didn't become, one or the other.
Yeah, well, we can look at it another way.
It was one or the other that it was, they selected the preferred project.
Yeah, Exeter's got two projects, and we can't give them both, but we'll give them one.
Right.
So, it's a possibility.
But it sounds like, where Jeremy's at right now, it's pretty much turnkey or closer, and primarily at this point because of the boundary issues on the other project. So I'd hate to see it be a drag on what he's put together, because that's basically ready to go.
Yeah, I think, two things there. We've been, I don't know how long they've been working on that project. We've had discussions about this for, coming on a year now, and CELT is also a partner on this, as you all know.
Right.
Dwayne Hyde has been helping me quite a bit. So I know this project has been in discussions with the landowner for years. It does have a little bit more of a generous window for closing. I didn't catch what Jeremy said their proposed closing was, but I'm assuming it's next year, and that's why they're trying to move it quickly. So this is one that is pretty far advanced. We have an appraisal, we have, a lot of title work, we have an entire boundary survey, so a lot of the due diligence has been done. So really the questions are confirming some of that due diligence with regards to the boundary, and then of course the big funding piece. So it's pretty far along. The landowners are really motivated. I think if we put the brakes on now, that would not go over well with the landowners. I think they need to see kind of continued movements forward towards, fundraising and on the due diligence side. again, I think there's a way, if there is a concern from the commission and it's a reasonable one in a competitive grant year, that maybe they would award this project and not the other project, and that there would be a preference for the reverse. There's a way, again, that we could communicate that and avoid that situation.
So that dialogue is available.
I think so, yeah. I think I'd like to have more conversation with SELT. Again, they're our partners in this project, and so I think I could have a pretty frank discussion with Dwayne and Jeremy on, if it came down to that, on how to signal that to drinking water.
Thank you.
Well, I think they have ranking criteria and all that. I mean, there's a whole process for selecting projects, so.
Exactly.
So the ranking criteria it's not like they holistically review all the projects and try to geographically necessarily spread them out or anything like that. I don't think.
No, that's absolutely right, Drew. So I think the quantitative ranking will be what it is. I don't actually know if there's often grants will try to spread out to some degree, more qualitatively their funding. But yeah, it'll come in and score how it's going to score. I guess in the very off chance that these two projects are neck and neck, maybe we could give some signaling there. But I don't think. It's more likely, like you're saying, Drew, it's going to score out and there may be a big step difference.
Okay.
I wanted to, sorry.
No, I don't know do we have more questions? I mean, it seems like we have to decide if we're going to move forward with the motion regarding the letter. That's ultimately.
And I don't know if I said that the two contingencies would be resolution of the boundary issue to the town's satisfaction, number one, and number two, the town's decision to proceed with the conservation purchase.
If I could say, so our chair is watching this meeting, so I received a text message from him that said he can't promise anything, but he will talk to Russ tomorrow about getting this on the next agenda because it would have to be posted Friday. So I just wanted to let you know they'll have a conversation tomorrow.
Jeremy's
proposal.
Yeah, the chair of the project, I'm sorry, the select board.
Which project are we talking about?
This one.
This one too?
Oh, yes, sorry, the other one.
The other one.
Okay.
Yeah,
All right.
sorry. Didn't mean to confuse it.
But you're supposed to write a formal email.
Yeah, but they will tomorrow.
Yeah.
But I just wanted to let you know that.
Okay.
While we're talking about these.
He's on top of it.
Yes.
Got it.
Wow.
Nice.
Cool.
He's glued, he said. He's glued to the.
So for this one, we have the two stipulations, which are the resolution of this boundary issue that's been talked about, and then the town's decision to proceed with the conservation purchase. Does that need to be explained further?
I think that would be
The select
similar
board
to
agreeing to support this? Because we haven't had the
boundary issue is being worked on, but that's as far as we can go with that.
right, and so until the boundary issue is resolved, the town will not be able to make a decision. Is that correct?
Lynette, just a point of clarification, it's the town's decision to proceed with the conservation purchase, meaning the town vote, correct?
Correct, yeah. I imagine the select board also is going to have some ultimately approval authority since we're talking about a fee title purchase.
Right.
So that's one level, and then certainly, the town residents voting on the proposed funding.
Okay, so do we need to talk through the mechanics of this more in terms of how would this get on the ballot for March?
Well, you propose it as a warrant article.
Right, so how are we gonna go about, do we want to have a meeting with the select board to?
But she's under the same deadline as Jeremy is, right? I would assume.
Same grant cycle.
Yeah.
Nancy, you look like you want to say something.
No, the only thing I'm thinking in my mind, and I'll say it out loud, is that the boundary issue is, for me, anyway, in my perspective, it's the first hurdle that has to be jumped before anything goes any further.
Right.
I don't have a timeline on that.
Right. So we don't have a timeline on that. So at this point, we can submit a letter, but in terms of taking it forward with us, with the select board, we're not in a position to do that until we get this other thing resolved.
Yeah, I think that's right, and I think teeing up the mechanics is helpful to, with an eye towards a potential March warrant article, but recognizing that absolutely the town has to get the boundary and title cleared up prior to that. There was a comment about us being on the same timeline as Jeremy. That's true with regards to the application and then the application funding decisions, but we would have a long period of time before we needed to enter into a grant agreement if we were awarded. So we'll find out in December if we're awarded drinking water funds. If we are, we can hold on entering into a grant agreement until we get those approvals from the town and see if it gets on the ballot and if it's voted positively in March. So we would not need to enter into a grant agreement until all of that was squared away. So that's the contingency that I'm talking about before the town would be in a position to accept funding.
I would work with the select board saying that we'd like to potentially put forth a warrant article for the 2024 town meeting, contingent upon several different factors. The boundaries are one, maybe another, I'm not sure. And so that the mechanics will be in place to create a properly worded warrant article. And, so then the board could have that before them. Again, the warrant articles aren't going to be recommended by the board until
After
January.
Right, in the
public hearing.
But it would be good to have it so that the budget vetting happens.
Yeah,
in the budget committee.
But you'll know about the grant award in December, so.
But
possibly.
So the thought is to start the conversation with the select board, get all of this conversation out in the open so we know where do these different boards sit, are, collectively as a town, are we interested in moving forward for 2024, or is there a hard line thought by the select board to say, no, we don't want additional warrant articles in 2024. I think
exactly
having that conversation sooner than later is helpful, certainly.
And go
sorry.
ahead. No, you finish. I didn't mean to interrupt you. I just want to put it, the budget recommendation committee, that's everything. So to throw something after they've done their job, at least if they're aware of it, when they're talking about the overall budget amounts.
Well, yeah, but they don't review.
Their recommendation, but we.
No, but they don't review warrant articles.
No, but they still like to look at the whole picture in their conversations, that's all. And they pay attention to the select board meetings and the discussions about what might be coming up.
Well, at that point, when we do the budget, and Kristen has to go in before the budget committee on the all-day session.
And that's my date I was going to bring up, October 20th, all day budget meeting. So if anybody wants to watch it, Kristen will be.
She can discuss it with the budget committee then.
Yes, and you can watch it and it'll be recorded, so.
Okay. All right, so that's a tentative plan. I think that's enough on this, I don't think we're going to get much further.
But Lynette, there's not the urgency to have that discussion with the select board on the 25th, correct?
No,
Okay.
I don't
Okay,
think
good.
so. I really defer to you all how you want to, how and when is appropriate to start the discussion with the select board. But again, I understand the town needs to review the title work and get settled on that first. So
And that'll
given
give us
the timing though, depending on how long that process goes, I think, if we're into October, November, it would be good to check in with the select board at that time and hopefully be within that time frame to get the title issue resolved.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's worth targeting an October date to start the conversation with the select board. I think that, at least initiate conversation so that they're aware of this. I know that they're aware of the legal counsel reviewing the boundary information, but to at least start that conversation.
Yeah, I mean, I think the 25th, if and when we do talk with them, it would be smart to just acknowledge that we're going to be coming back with another conservation project of a different sort then. So we could at least bring it up then.
So just keep in mind for October 2nd, 6th?
I think that sounds great. And similar to Jeremy, I think a letter of support from the water district, water department would also be very helpful with this, if that's possible.
Okay. I don't know if the water and the wellhead protection areas for the Forest Ridge HOA. We could ask the water department, but it's not within
That's, I think,
their area.
controlled by Aquarium, I think.
Yeah, it's not town water.
It's not town water.
Right, it's run by
I think it's Aquarium.
Pennachuck.
Pennachuck, that's it. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. So you may want to reach, I don't know if you've been in talks with the homeowners association there?
I have not yet.
Okay. I could talk to you later about that too. Separately.
Yeah, that would be great.
Okay.
Yeah, even a general letter of support from the water department if they thought it made sense as far as groundwater protection.
Okay. Yeah, we can see where that goes.
Can I just ask how long they've been examining the title?
We just received the report. So this has been an ongoing issue for many years. We just received a title report from the property owners outlining how they believe, making the case for how they believe they own the property. That report has then been given to our legal counsel, and that's where it's at. They're still reviewing the document.
So it's not been, I mean, it's an ongoing dispute for years, but it's only been reviewed starting recently.
Right.
It's not like it's.
Correct.
Just trying to figure out how long it will continue.
Yeah.
Those things usually get resolved.
Yeah.
So justice moves slowly.
I guess.
Okay.
Okay. I guess
Takes time.
I'll motion that we send a letter indicating that the Conservation Commission supports an application for the Drinking Water Trust Fund grant contingent upon the resolution of the boundary issue to the town's satisfaction and that the town's decision to proceed with the conservation purchase. So it's contingent on those two things.
I will not be a voting member of this one either.
Okay, all right, I failed to do that. It's, Michelle is up. Okay, so.
Second.
We have a second.
I was going to say you second. Besides me.
I could have done it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? None. Hearing that, the motion passes.
You just seconded
Okay.
it.
Thank you, Lynette.
Thank you all very much.
Let's be in
Appreciate
touch
it.
on this one as things develop.
Okay.
And we'll get you that
absolutely. Thank
letter
you.
hopefully later this week.
And I have a draft of it, so I'll get it over to Kristen.
Perfect.
Okay.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good night.
Thanks for being flexible time-wise
We'll
about.
spice it up to make it better.
Great.
Authentic. You know, they don't want
works
to
for
see the
me.
same letter from multiple people.
Jeff always said the good points. Highlight, high points.
Thanks, Lynette.
All right.
Bye.
Bye now. All right. So those are our action items. Do we have some other, I think we have a few other little minor things to get through. Property management, McDonald
just to
gate closure.
Annually, we close the McDonald Gate in the winter time. We've had gate stewards all season long, opening in mornings and closing it in the evening. And so on October 27th is when I propose we stop doing that for the season. That still allows for fishing to occur during the fishing season, but then kind of gives some sort of more control over what happens in the winter, I guess.
Is that to alleviate the gate closing responsibilities or plowing?
So there has been quite a bit of vandalism and other activities that tend to happen. Dumping of leaves is a really key one, and so closing kind of before that has been helpful in the past. And so we went through a series of discussions. This is a conservation easement, it's private land. We manage the parking area on this property. It's been a bone of contention for many years. The property owner wanted to close it. We negotiated and said, how about seasonal closure? So this is the start of
Will they have to open it when if the town moves forward and starts rebuilding the bridge? That would be good. That's how it was created in the first place. It became the staging area when they put the new bridge in.
Right, yep. We have been discussing with the property owner about the bridge work, so, yeah. But Public Works has the code as well, so they can open it as they.
That's how it became in the first place.
Yeah.
It came to me.
Okay, any other property management? I see there's some other monitoring.
Yeah, so I thought we'd handle those the same as others. There were a couple that I wanted handle those the same way we do other committee reports, in that I'm happy to talk to any of these. But I did want to call attention specifically to, so I've started the property monitoring process. Anyone wants to join me, please reach out. I'm happy to do that with others. Allen Street, we have had a maintained trail on Allen Street since the property was acquired. It was put in initially by the abutters jointly with the Conservation Commission. And I think it's just like the aging of the neighborhood, or I'm not sure what it is, but use of that property has dramatically gone down. And so the trail itself, even though Bill and Carlos, not 2 or 3 years ago, maybe, I don't know, my timeline might be off, had the trail all set to go. In that short period of time, it's deteriorated. It's almost hard to see where the trail is. And so it could really use some on-the-ground maintenance. There's some trash that I plan to pull out, and I'm working with Public Works, and there's a kayak or a canoe that's half submerged, and I tried to get it out, but I really need help. So if someone wants to help with that, and Keith, I see you raised your hand. So yeah, that would be great if you could help with that.
Where is it?
So this canoe has been there for ages, but it had been up on the bank. And I believe I know who it belongs to, but it's now in the water and it's sinking, and so it's time for it to move along. But I couldn't get it out, so.
So is it, you feel that there's very little or no use of the trail?
Yeah, it's almost none. It's hard to see that there's any. There's a small fishing trail that gets used heading from Allen Street right out to the point, and then beyond that, it used to curve around the point. That was pretty clear. Cross the brook a little bit, but beyond that, there's nothing.
So if no one's using it, do we want to put time and effort maintaining it and fixing it?
I think it's a worthy location. It's in a neighborhood. I think that with promotion, it would be a great location for people to use. In my opinion, yes, but I'm willing to do what the commission
just throwing it out there.
feels. I think it's a very unique view of the marsh. You get a view of, the Squamscott River and Wheelwright Creek. It's really a cool property. And ultimately, there could be potential to connect someday to Portsmouth Ave. So I think having that be, we had one subdivision for the Portsmouth Ave property that included a trail easement through there. So I think having that as a trail makes sense, but I'm willing to do whatever the commission wants to do.
I've never actually been out there, so I should go check it out, but.
Keith,
So maybe we come back.
Need help.
I'll clear it.
Okay. So it will take some decisions about where the trail will go. I was able to find some of the ribbons from when Carlos and Pete went out there. So maybe we could do that together and identify where it used to be. But yeah, does the commission want that trail? It's another network that we would need to maintain. So that really is up to you all, not to me.
If there isn't a user base for it, we seem to have a lot of trails that sort of just maintain themselves through dedicated users.
Yeah.
I don't know. I could see it going either way. You can still access it, right? It's just more work to walk through the brush. There's not a trail.
If it's that unique a spot and it's that small a trail, let's just do it.
Yeah, maybe it's just to maintain the point. That does get some use because you want to ensure that people aren't heading down the bank, and so that they're using the upper area. Maybe that makes sense to install and and maintain. Maybe it's not a large loop like we recently installed. Maybe it's just the point.
Yeah.
What if commission members go take a walk before the next meeting?
Let's think about that one. No need to make a decision right now.
Okay, sounds good.
That's an excellent idea.
Okay.
Any other trails or property management things, Kristen?
There is one which I thought I had on here, but I don't.
Linden Woods?
Linden Commons is another one. Yeah, so that trail, Linden Commons also could use some maintenance. It's just the branches are growing in. That does get a fair amount of use. It's just been a pretty growy spring. The rains.
Which end needs work? The Linden Street end?
So connecting from it's the main trail network connecting from Linden Street, and it's dead ends before you get to the railroad tracks.
Right.
The fingers to the homeowners are there and actively used.
Okay.
But especially heading toward Linden Street, it gets pretty tight.
The one Pete used to mow all the time.
Yeah, yes.
And fight with the...
Right, bittersweet.
Yeah. Bittersweet.
Yeah.
That's the one behind Winslow?
Yes.
Linden and Winslow, yeah, that is.
And it leaves by the river.
Yes.
Post there,
Yeah.
But I think that's minor. I don't know that needs a whole lot of effort. It's just a little bit of trail trimming. The other one I wanted to talk about is Drinkwater Road. So we've had notices in the past about ATV use out there when we were walking with the Land Water Conservation Fund Parks person for the drinking water exploration project.
Yeah, I was out on that with
they expressed concerns about the ATV use. I had intended to reach out to the property owner and who I believe was involved with using ATVs on Smith Page. That didn't happen. Fortuitously, he just came into my office today because someone put a Town of Exeter sign up. It wasn't me. I don't know if...
Oh yeah, there's a new sign at Smith Page.
Yeah, wait. Right? At the entrance. That was us. That was Keith.
Good work.
Yeah, it looks great. I love it. And so, but right at the end of his property, there's a new sign facing him and a game camera that says "Town of Exeter, no ATVs" or something like that, according to him. And so I told him I was not aware of anyone who did that. It wasn't a Conservation Commission effort, but he did say another individual was throwing signs up, so maybe it was them. Long story short, by him coming in, I think we have a solution for the ATV issues out there. I think he understands what the concern is, so that's a good thing that happened. But I did want to confirm that no one did that. You don't have to admit it if you did, but maybe come to me afterwards. Maybe come to me afterwards, because I did tell him that, you know, that we would reach out as a board with a letter before we took any sort of action, like.
The trail cam was there 2 months ago, but without a sign.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So you only added the sign?
Well, somebody knows how to set the sign then. Somebody has video.
I was wondering, it's a deluxe trail cam, so. Nice.
Yeah, he had some thoughts about what he wanted to do with the trail cam.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm sure.
So anyway, I guess the good, despite my lack of action, the good news is I think we'll have a solution to Smith Page. And that's really the only projects I wanted to talk about. Everything else, unless you had questions, I don't feel there's a need to highlight.
Did you happen to say that they made a path to Squire?
Oh, yes, and I'll send a letter to that. So there's a trail that comes from the main trail network at Linden Commons, and someone has added a path to the backyard of 2 homes on Squire Lane, which to me, I don't think that's really a big issue. To me, it makes sense for them to access it. What I don't like is they also added a private property sign.
Yeah, there's a no trespassing
Right,
sign.
and so that's not okay, because it's town property, or conservation easement.
Yeah, I was wondering about
So
that.
unless you feel strongly, I was just gonna do a letter to those 2 properties and say private property sign needs to come down.
Thank you.
I would agree, that's course.
Yeah.
Just past the river. on Linden Street.
That sounds good to me.
Okay.
Cross the line.
Any other trail issues? Certainly, it's been wet, but they're holding up.
It's Mushroom Central out there. I'll tell you
Mushroom
that.
Central, we were talking about that today a little bit.
Which, it sounded like there was some knowledge on this board. I would love to do a mushroom walk if someone here knows someone or has the skills
You
to
should get
lead
Allison
one.
back. She's the
Would she?
mushroom.
Oh, is she?
I know a guy who can get access to magic mushrooms.
I think that would be a really well-attended event, not the mushroom identification.
That might also be.
Just came back and burning there.
Call it down pike.
So please, if you have, I'll reach out to Allison, maybe that's a good idea, maybe she has interest, but if others have someone, please send their name to me if you think that would be a good walk.
I do know people, but they don't like to share their spots. Which I found out. I said, oh, where'd you get that?
Yeah.
You know, also, you gotta time it because, you know, they pop at different times.
Right, but I feel like even if the public just saw, you know, a handful of different species, I think people would love it.
Gets them started, right?
Yeah.
The interest started.
And Little River Conservation Area is a great one. We tend to almost always see mushrooms regardless of the season, so.
Yeah, I don't know enough to lead something related to a mushroom. I mean, we could do an exploration with a good field guide or something and try and key out some things, but I don't know.
I just know my way around the produce aisle of Hannaford.
I know. If we have a book, we can say, oh, that's might be that, right?
I'd be afraid of that.
Go food for thought.
Yeah, I know. I know.
And then I did have another thought for outreach. Are we doing committee reports? What section are we even on? Sorry.
We can go to outreach events.
Oh, yeah, so there's a couple things to talk about there. On September 14th, this Thursday, the Sustainability Committee and Energy Committee have teamed up, and they have a table at the farmers market. They're promoting both the Opt Up campaign, which is to increase the amount of renewable energy in your portfolio through community power. And also promoting, Energy Committee is having 3 members step down, and Sustainability has 1 vacancy, so they're promoting those vacancies as well. If you know people who are interested, please send them my way. I'd be happy to talk to them about that. September 23rd, Brentwood, our neighbors in Brentwood, the Parks and Rec Department, and Exeter Squamscott Local Advisory Committee are holding their annual, this is the 5th annual kayak. What they do is they put in by Hague Road area,
Yes,
I think,
yeah.
and then they paddle down to Pickpocket Dam, and then have a big barbecue there. Anyone is welcome to come. It's free. So that's on September 23rd from 10 to 12.
Kristen, back to the opt-up event.
Yeah.
Do you have flyers that you can send out to committee members? I'd love to post those out at the mill.
Yes.
Okay, that'd be
I will
great.
do that right after this meeting.
Okay, great. By the way, we opted up.
Nice. Yay. The cool thing about it is opting up right now, not to spend too much time on it, I know, but opting up in this 6-month period costs the same as Granite Basic did in the prior period. So you can have 100% of your electricity come from renewable energy if you opt up to the Clean 100, and cost the same as Granite Basic did when we first entered the community power program. That's huge, in my opinion. There are other levels that you could choose if you don't want that are higher than the entry level, which is 23%. So it's something worth looking into. It's really working out financially. And the Clean 100 is still cheaper than Unitil's Unitil's default rate, which a lot of people don't have the ability to purchase electric vehicles, or their homes aren't right for solar panels. This is a great way to really have an impactful, actionable action for climate change. So that's why we're promoting the campaign.
Nice.
Yeah.
You're a good salesperson. Or
I can't, it's because I'm very eager. Dover just signed, so we're going to be in it too.
good.
I cannot wait, yes. And then the other idea I had with October coming around, that if you're on board with it, maybe we could work it out for the next meeting, is what do you guys think about having some sort of jack-o'-lantern walk or something like that, where we pick a property, people can drop off their jack-o'-lanterns, we put them along the trail, they leave them, we set them up before sunset, they come back at sunset and walk along the path and see their jack-o'-lanterns. And they're excited to find out where their pumpkin's going to be. And then, if possible, we could combine it with a property. Maybe we could get some sort of compost bins or something like that and do it after Halloween. If the Sustainability Committee's pumpkin composting with Lainey and Lou falls through, so we could double team it. But even if it doesn't, I love the idea of a jack-o'-lantern walk. Just a short one. And I don't know what property would be right.
Allen Road, and then we'll have
Allen
a clean
Street,
road.
right? Yeah.
Trail, yeah. That would be cool out to the.
That'd be great.
Yeah.
There's a machete.
So I think it's a great idea. We've done something similar down where I work. Depending upon the length of the trail, you might want to consider reaching out to Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, or other civic-minded groups who are eager to carve pumpkins, because again, I guess it depends on how long of a trail you're trying to illuminate, but it can get, it can be a lot of work.
I wasn't thinking that we'd be the carvers. In my mind, I was people would drop off their pumpkins, we'd hide them along the trail, and then they'd come back later and they'd walk out. I don't know. I don't want to carve that many. I hate carving pumpkins.
You don't want to. And if you do, power tools.
All right, so food for thought. Maybe not, but
No, that sounds like a good idea to get kids involved, and I think that'd be great.
Me too. I just don't know where.
Yeah, we can talk about that.
All right, we'll think about it for the next meeting.
I feel like maybe the trail that goes around the old football field where we put the bridges in,
Yeah.
that's not too long, and there's a lot of parking.
Yeah, there's entry both sides.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There, so.
Yeah. Okay.
Make it a whole day, long tables, they can carve their own, then move them.
Oh, yeah. But the parking is, yeah, if you're gonna get a lot of people, you're gonna need to have a good area to park.
Yep.
Of course, there you could use the
SST off
the
hours.
high school park, well, not all high school now.
Skateboard, parking lot.
Or the SST.
SST parking,
Yeah.
yeah. In the evening, that'll be, pretty empty. You can just go over the bridge.
Yeah.
It's pretty
Which
open
is
trail.
gorgeous, yeah.
A few years from now, you could have it illuminate the pathway to Rain's barn when that's finished.
Yes.
That would
That would be great.
And have some sort of event inside the barn.
Yeah.
Which I should update you about rains. Yes. So we're progressing. We are going to request an extension. It's not technically an extension. We're not finishing this season. Stephen believes he'll get pretty much everything completed with the exception of the east side of the clapboards. He thinks he'll get the south side completely done. East side is the field side. But he won't want to install the windows on the side he hasn't done the clapboards on, and the transom windows, which are the long windows above the doors, won't be done, and possibly a little bit with the flooring, but I think we'll be in a good position to be able to use it next year. Yeah, and we're still within the allowance for LCHIP. We don't need a grant extension. We're just changing the timeline a little bit, and they're aware of it. So it's just a matter of documenting.
And we're looking at potential other funding sources to fill the gap.
Yes. So I submitted a Moose Plate grant application, which I think we hear about in November. I didn't look this up before the meeting, I'm sorry. I think in November, I've submitted a CIP item for the remainder contingent on getting the Moose Plate grant. So we should know moving forward. Drew also reached out. Valerie had done some research. I think you remember this from the last meeting. Identified some foundations we could reach out to. Drew sent, Valerie had crafted even an email. It was like beautiful. You just cut and paste and send it to the person she suggested. And Drew did that.
Good job, Drew.
It was hard. But yeah,
So
there'll be a lot
fingers
more work
crossed.
to actually apply.
Yep.
Okay. Any other things we want to talk about before we wrap up?
Can I give you 2 dates to keep in mind? I already gave you the all-day budget, so anyone else follow that conversation when Kristen's on. Wednesday, October 11th, an all boards meeting is being scheduled, the second one. Don't have the date or the time or the place. I'm assuming it's still going to be the library, but it'll be posted. And then the following Wednesday, October 18th, a right to know seminar is going to be available. Again, have not been given the location, but those are really great to attend if no one's attended them. And I try to do one every year because they update you on the laws and how the right to know law works. So it's a really important thing. So it's great. Thank you.
Cool. And I got an email from Bob about the bi-weekly newsletter. So I don't know if I've gotten one. I don't think I've gotten it yet.
So when you go in, you can decide what ones you want to get.
Yeah, I did all that.
It's awesome.
I subscribed, but I don't know if I've gotten.
I think one just came up today.
Maybe one came out. But
Yeah,
that's something,
they're great.
if you haven't subscribed to, the town has now through, I think it's through MailChimp or whatever, there was a link that got sent out. we can forward it if not everyone got it.
Yeah, I don't.
Okay.
Yeah,
We will
they're
forward it to the
wonderful.
group, and it's open to anyone. You just put in your email address and you can choose which newsletters or town communications you want, whether it's from about the trash and recycling day or whatever. So it's good. And the DPW ones, they have construction updates and things like that are useful.
And there is an additional account. I hesitated to really commit to anything. I sat through training with Bob. There is an additional account available that we could do some sort of conservation commission, sustainability, energy committee kind of thing. I'm just not ready to commit to that kind of work, but Bob did assure me that the town of Exeter one, they would be happy to highlight anything that we have. And so that level of commitment, I think I could keep up and just send him stuff, which would be a great way to connect with folks.
In this bi-weekly newsletter, or?
Yeah, so there's I thought there were two. I think there's a town of Exeter.
And then the e-news.
And then the bi-weekly e-news. Bi-weekly report, but I'm not entirely sure.
Yeah, so the one I just got was from Parks and Rec, and they just give you an e-newsletter on what's coming up and things like that. So there's that, and then there's the and you can get it from different departments, whatever your interest is for the e-newsletter.
Right.
And then they do the bi-weekly reports.
So how do you sign up for this?
We'll
I'll
send
send a
out a
link.
link. There's
I'll
a
send a
link
link
to a
after the meeting.
website that you do it. And this was, I only say that because that was when we had the last all boards meeting, that was one of the action items out of that was to try to have a newsletter type
Communication.
townwide communication.
Yes.
It's
Okay.
very exciting, yeah.
It is.
Yeah. All right, so let's approve the minutes. Any edits?
I do have an edit.
All right.
We were in private session for longer. It was like right after we started. We were in there almost 45 minutes, I think, yeah. So he has it that we're in there 10 minutes, like 7:36 to...
Oh, okay.
So I think we started like 7:06. It was pretty soon after we started the meeting.
Not 7:36 to 7:51.
Yeah, I think it was, we were in there longer than...
Okay,
would
I
say
can check the
10.
times.
Yeah.
For
Yeah, because if he started the meeting at 7, I don't know, there was nothing
No, we went right
to get to, that would be a lot of introduction.
Yeah, hi, how are you? How was your weekend?
There was one other thing. C3I, the construction company, the representative, his last name is spelled R-I-C-C-I, and it was spelled in there R-I-T-C-H-I-E, I believe.
Richie instead of Richie.
Richie. Which is an understandable mistake, but.
They're pronounced the same.
Yeah, on his shirt. Yeah, it's Reese Construction, or Richie Construction.
Okay. Someone want a motion?
Make a motion to approve the minutes from 9/29. Well, no.
The August 8th.
8, I think.
If I put my glasses on, I could tell. From August 8th. Connor, do I have a second?
I second it.
Okay.
As amended?
Got it.
As amended?
As amended.
As amended. All right, all those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? Okay, the motion passes. Any other business? Okay, our next meeting's the 10th of October. All right, we'll look forward to that. And
Motion to adjourn.
we motion to adjourn, motion seconded. All those in favor? Aye. All right, we are adjourned.
Thank you for tuning in to Exeter TV. Exeter TV is the town's public and government access channels, available on Comcast channels 6 and 22. Channel 6 is your channel. If you have an idea for a program, want to host your own talk show, or submit a film, we're here to get your content on television. On Channel 22, we bring you live and replay coverage of government meetings and other town updates. A third channel, Blue Hawk Media, is operated by SAU 16 and can be found on Channel 8, with all your school sports, events, and meetings. You can watch Exeter TV online at exeternh.tv, Apple TV, and on Roku. Find us on social media for extra content. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the bell to get notified about live streams and new content. Tune in to our platforms every other Friday to watch the Exeter Biweekly Report with recaps of recent events, updates from town departments, and messages from nonprofits in your area. If you head to our website, exeternh.tv, we invite you to sign up to our newsletter to receive monthly updates about new content, upcoming meetings, and more. We'd like to thank you for taking the time to watch Exeter TV and hope that you tune in to our other content as well.